So today's topic, and we usually have a topic and we'll kind of introduce something, and then we have plenty of time for sharing and community, which is beautiful. So today's topic is letting go, completing, and setting intentions. We've been talking about that for the last couple of weeks as we're starting our new year, and we've been addressing it from a viewpoint of um, I'll say older people, and then what are older people like with it. We talk navigating aging. Uh, Older people for me have always been anybody older than me. But now there's some people so it could be any age. But I think for me, it's a season of life that is different than when we're younger. Saying we're younger, we have, like, for me, it was about setting goals and gotta rise and grind and perform and kind of be on this hamster wheel of life. And so, beautiful part of aging for me, one of the beautiful parts is removing myself from that wheel and finding out what is it that I want. And it's more of a inner experience. So when we talk about intentions and letting go, what do we want? It may or may not be a long-term ideal. And last week we talked about, today being enough. So that's quite a difference from when we're younger, or when I was younger, as far as having goals out there, creating things. Got to create X amount of money in my business, or I want a certain house or a boat or a car, to, wow, I really, really want some peace. And I just want to feel like today's enough. So I'm going to start off with reading a few JR quotes, get us in the mood. So JR, the spiritual warrior practices dying every day and experiences rebirth at every minute. This is not physical death. This is not physical death, but a willingness to see everything anew in each moment. Every day, in every way, you are enough. Even though you may have habits you'd like to change, physical features you don't like, or a mind that wanders when you want it to stay focused, who you are shines forward more brightly than any judgments you hold against yourself. Have the courage to be you. Create enough love to accept every part of yourself. And as you give these gifts to yourself, the more you will receive. And one last year quote. Someone said to me, maybe if I stick around long enough, I will learn. But even if you don't stick around long enough, Jesus Christ and friends have you covered. So relax, take it easy, enjoy the ride, enjoy the scenery. And before the next bell rings for an angel with wings, you will be home free, meaning that as you make the claim to your spiritual heritage, then you come to know you are home free. And even if you don't always realize that fact of life, it is still true. So smile just the same. So with just setting the tone with our sharing today, the start of the year, it's kind of popular to uh, declutter, to, simplify life in whatever ways. So there's a simplify your life exercise that's on this exercise is on the MSIA website. If you go to MSIA and then spiritual tools, this is called Simplify Your Life. So I'm going to just read it. There's 9 steps, and I'll read that, kind of guide us through this process as we simplify life. And I find that when I just come present and, in the theme of today is enough. My worries, let go of my worries. There's from the Bible, it's about worry. The worries of today are enough. Tomorrow's worries will handle themselves tomorrow. So we'll just go through this simplify your life exercise. So you can close your eyes if you'd like or not, whatever you feel comfortable with. And I'm just going to read from the exercise that's written on the msia.org website. This process is designed to help you relax and let go of anything that's tying up your energy. Step 1, be patient. Take a breath. Be aware of your shoulders. Lower them. Relax. Step 2, whatever comes your way comes because you have brought it to you. The romantic way to look at it is to say you've been given a test, which you can pass or fail. In reality, it is just you drawing to yourself the next step in your growth. At this point, you can go in whatever direction you want to go. Step 3, it is easier to go negative because that is the thrust of our world. To choose negative or positive is not an equal contest. The odds are stacked against you. Step 4, as a spiritual warrior with your sword of truth and armed with your intention, the odds will tilt back to your favor. Step 5, but you must have the energy to do it. A spiritual warrior works with impeccability to conserve energy for the most important task of all, awareness. Awareness means being open and continuing to expand in spite of and because of any obstacles you meet. Step 6, simplify your life. You do not need all the clutter you are holding on to. Get rid of it now because it is stealing your energy. Step 7, the clutter in your life takes energy to maintain. Start with the smallest things. Clear away a little, and you'll be amazed at the vast amounts of energy it releases inside of you. Incomplete things also tie up energy. Step 8, actually step 9. Well, it's actually step 8, isn't it? It's step 8, simplify your life. You do not need all the clutter you're holding on to. Get rid of it now because it's stealing your energy. I might have read that 2 times. Step 9, guilt. Let go of it right now. And keep around you only the things that give you energy. So we're going to go into sharing and just open it up on any of these topics. The other thing I'll let you know is if some people have questions about aging topics, whether it's a loved one's in the hospital or how can you manage nursing home stays, something about Alzheimer's, caregiving, hospice, end of life. I'm always open to discussing any of those. Also got lots of experience with that. And I bring that experience into the topic for the day in our way of how we deal with the aging plus the spiritual aspect of it and how it differs as we get older. So anybody have anything on their mind that you want to share? The prompt that came forward was, it's time for blank. Or I can free up energy by. Shelley, yes.
I'll share.
Okay, Bird.
My name is Birdie, and when COVID first started, I I was home and I went through all my stuff and I gave 2 truckloads to the maintenance man in our building. And I said, I'm only going to have things that when I look around, I love that. For whatever reason, I just like, ooh, that's nice. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, that's kind of cool. And it was really fun. And because I have a really large place, there were some things that were, I kind of like that. I can do without it, but I have the space. Let me keep it. So when I move, I know which things I have no interest in taking with me, but while they're here, it's like, yeah, that's kind of cool. My completions that I need to do more of are cleaning out all my papers. I've been a teacher in every level from preschool to college, all my dance therapy stuff, creative arts. I've got file cabinets full of stuff. And I've tried to go through them. I have gone through them and have not been able to throw out a lot because even though I'm 77, there's that voice, oh, someday I might do that again. And it's like, wait a second. I'm never going to teach preschool again. I have no clue, but you never know. Or somebody might be doing this, and I have this that I can give them, and they'll be so happy that they got it. And so, I mean, I can laugh at myself now. When I first started doing this years ago, it was like, oh, what's wrong with me that I make these piles of this should go away and that maybe I'll keep and then I stuff them all back in, and I would really judge myself and be really angry at myself. And now it's like, okay, if I die, someone else will just throw it all out. And it's life has become very funny in a lot of ways to me, including, well, especially my own stuff. It's like I can laugh at it now, which is really kind of cool. So I love that theme of completion, and I am going through things slowly. I acknowledge that there are things that I am doing, and getting rid of things, papers mainly, other stuff, things I love. And I'm fine with, but it's the papers and the organization of and on my computer as well. It's like I really don't have a decent system. So I'm pray I have an ideal scene of a computer tutor that I would love to find. And as you know, another non-completion is all my dying stuff. So I can even laugh at that now, which I couldn't do a few years ago. I was like, why don't you just do it? It's like, I didn't just do it. And if I die, I die. Thank you, God. So there you have it. That's my completion sharing for the day.
That's awesome. Thank you. I can really relate to the keeping documents and past teaching things. I've had these boxes out in my storage of like, yes, and I'll use these to make this new class or put this on my website. And so there's like 4 boxes out there. And
I've got an answer, by the way, to storage, which is to run out of money and lose your storage unit. That handles everything very fast.
Right.
I mean, God has always kept me on a short leash, and a lot of the past decade has been letting go. And when you're homeless and you can just take what you carry, that's another way of solving it. It's poverty has its benefits. I would just say a lot of my life recently is about letting go and coming into acceptance. I've had a terrible time with the first law of spirit, acceptance. In fact, I built a whole career on changing cities and countries and all kinds of stuff. And kind of now it doesn't really matter. As my material life has plummeted, I guess it would be that way from your perspective, my spiritual life has, really rocketed. And I have wonderful inner experiences. I teach and I preach in Protestant and Catholic churches, and I love doing it. And a couple of things I'd say about it. I commend to anyone, you probably know this, Cheryl, the Franciscan priest Richard Rohr, who runs the Contemplative Center in New Mexico, who wrote a book called Falling Upward. It's about as you age, you start getting health problems. You've got all the age problems you mentioned, but spiritually, if you accept it, you grow. And so what I ran a class on, it's just a wonderful little book, very short and very much dealing with what we're talking about. The other thing I want to mention is the beauty of being with people as they die. Um, I'm thinking of one particular experience recently where everything seemed to be perfect. I go to visit this member of the congregation who is in the last stages of life, and the door opens, and it's a nurse I used to work with when I was doing assisted living is taking care of him. He's in the perfect situation. It's like it's amazing what is happening. And I go in, and my first visit, he's angry, he's upset. This is what's happening to me. I didn't expect this at this stage in my life. 2 days later, I go back, and unprompted, he says to me, I've just accepted it. This is where I am. And I got to tell you, I was literally, materially blinded by the light in that room, in that moment. The beauty of the soul passing is just simply amazing, and it's a true honor just to witness that. Gosh, so I used to have a problem with aging. I don't anymore, and I forget stuff, and my health stinks, and I need heart surgery and all that kind of stuff. But
let me.
we're just visiting here.
Mhm. That's cool. Thank you. Falling upwards. I like that. Yes.
Oh, yes, yes.
It's,
Hold on, hold
Yes.
on, hold on. Just
you want to,
let me mute myself here.
there you go. All right. Yeah, it is interesting. I've seen people, and there was a gentleman in MSIA that ended up getting ALS. And he couldn't. Just before he was, he'd saved his whole life, and he was going to retire and go traveling, and then he got ALS just before he started traveling, and I felt sorry for him at first, like, oh man, what a bummer. But as he declined, his body declined, so it was aging on steroids because of the disease. He was lighting up inside,
Yeah.
and his inner, like, I look at him, and he was just having the best time inside of himself, as his outer world went away. Literally, he couldn't do much with his body, but inside he was great, which is where we realize as we get older, like that's where it all is anyway, right? It's like you said, get rid of the storage units and get rid of the car, and they come down to what's truly important. I'm assisting at the upcoming Insight Masters class, and so it comes up in a couple of weeks, and so inside I'm going, okay, so I took the master's class in 2016, 2017, and so I was asking myself, like, I was picturing, if they asked me, get up in front of the room and say, how have you changed since the first master's class? The first thing that came into my mind was like, oh, I got a camper, and I camped for several years. Oh, I bought my ski boat of my life, my dreams. I have a lake house. And it was interesting to me that those were the first things that came up to say, but I realized those are also very measurable and tangible. And then I was like, okay, so how am I different inside? And I was wondering if it may work well. And I think in the DSS and the MSS class, we had a way to track and measure those kind of things, like measure your joy, whatever your joy scale is on a scale of 0 to 10, and just track it at the end of the day. How joyful was I? Or how peaceful was I? Whatever the quality is that you want, come up with a scale and track it. And so I think I'm going to go back to that, because it's easier when I can see something on paper. It's easier to track and also appreciate. And also, benefit of aging is, when I was younger, I thought, oh, I'm going to create these things. And then when I get the things, I realize that's not really what I wanted. And we talk about, well, what do you want, and what's the experience you're looking for? And it's really the experience that I'm looking for. The thing is nice, but it's really the experience of peace, joy, connection, belonging, those kind of things.
Can I share on a totally different topic that I think is pretty funny? I have the only relatives I have here in California. I have a first cousin, Emily, who is married to a neurosurgeon, Fred. And a couple of months ago, we had Fred's 90th birthday party. And he died on Thursday. And his funeral, or the weekend, Monday, I think. And the funeral is tomorrow. And what's really funny is I am so excited about going to this funeral. And I thought, that is really crazy. Like, it's like, that's my event of the week. And I think as I've looked at it, it's just being in a lot of my ministry, let me backtrack a little, is with people, either people I know, like this kind of thing, or people like I assisted all the insights. So people who are on this path coming and going. And my cousins, she was a lawyer, he was a neurosurgeon. They were very, very, very upper class, having parties with people and doing their thing, which I don't judge. It's just that we were very, very different. But they loved when I would come over, because they knew there was something. I mean, I couldn't talk about all the lawyer stuff and the medical stuff, but there was something that I think Spirit did in our ministry that just comes through. So I thought, oh, I get to be with all these people that I don't know tomorrow, and just go through all of them and bless them and just honor them for whatever, as they honor Fred. He was quite a big name in the community, because he was one of those doctors who really cared for his people. He made house calls and he would do whatever. So I just wanted to share that. I think that's pretty funny, that I'm super excited to go to a funeral. So, for whatever that's worth in this plan, but nobody else was sharing at the moment, so I took the opportunity.
Well, I love that. And, it reminds me of this call I got this morning, and it's someone that's in a nursing home, and they're like, Cheryl, this is horrible. So people aren't really responding how quickly I want them to, and I've got to ask them 3 or 4 times to get what I want. And I'm in bed most of the time, and it's loud and all these things. And they were worried, because that was like, maybe I should go to some other nursing home. I was like, well, it's, and like, well, I don't know if it's going to give you any comfort, but this is typical. This is what happens. The other option is to go home, and then that costs a lot of money. But the idea is to get you stronger. And so, can you make the most of it when you're there? Right. And so, you're going to a funeral, this person's in a nursing home, wherever we are today, and it is in alignment with, what we were talking about earlier, is acceptance. Like, okay, I accept that I'm here. in the nursing home, for example. And I accept that this is kind of how our healthcare system works. Is it anybody's ideal scene? No. But, you know, then we talk about, okay, you have control over your attitude, and, you know, the goal is to get stronger. And anyway, the acceptance of this is what is, and then going from there. Sometimes the dissonance between what I want and, you know, my expectations, and then what is actually happening is so large that it's causes a lot of stress. So if we go accepting, okay, this is what is, and then where do we want to go from there? So you get to go have a party at the funeral with all these interesting people, and of course your intention is to love them, just like you've been practicing in all the trainings that you assist, and bless them.
Well, you know,
So,
when my dad died in 1971, I was living in Mexico, and I got the call. And without going into the whole story, at that time I was studying with spiritual healers, and we were doing hands-on healing. So when I got the call in the middle of the night, I called them and I said, what do I do? Because they would talk about the joy of dying and spirit, and, you know, not MSIA, but, you know, the same kind of things. And so they said, be joyful for them and deal with your own grief, because that holds the soul to the planet. And I thought, oh, interesting. So I got on the plane, and in those days I had the whole plane for myself, and I sat in the back and I just cried. I did my thing. So by the time I got off the plane and got to my mom's home, my parents' home, I was in this bliss and in this joy. And I walk in, and there's all my relatives that I hadn't seen for a while. And I go, and everybody's like, they're all dressed in black. And they were all just, and I went, oh my God, where's my rheostat? So it's like all these years for me that, I mean, I really look forward to the day I die. Not that I want to rush it or go to commit suicide, or that would freak me out. I would never do that. But the excitement of being on this path and soul transcendence of, yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it. I don't remember what you shared, Cheryl, but it just that made me think, oh, maybe that's why I'm excited to go to this funeral, because in my perception, I'm joyful for my cousin. So anyway, just another nonsensical sharing.
right, and you bring up a good topic in that, like, how do we talk about death with other people? And I was the executor of this family friend, who didn't have family, so I and my family was his people. So we helped him through the end of his life, and was executor and handled all his business afterwards. So he wanted to be buried, and on his tombstone, he wanted, "I'm sorry for your loss," because he thought it was so funny and interesting that that was people's response when people died. "I'm sorry for your loss." No, he said, "I'm sorry for my loss." That's what he said on the tombstone. "I'm sorry for my loss." It was a play on words of "I'm sorry for your loss." And then, you go, well, is it "I'm sorry"? What do people want to hear who have just lost a loved one? And with that rheostat, sometimes we have to be, like, what's our audience? If they're dressed in black and mourning, there's a balance of coming in and going, "Hey, I'm celebrating." And they might not be ready for that. But is it a funeral? Is it a celebration of life? And people hold different ideas about death. And those of us who've worked with hospice and end of life, we've seen, and sometimes it's cultural, sometimes it's family beliefs. It's kind of multidimensional, but that sensitivity. Um, yeah. Anyway.
I think it's really important to address people on the level they're on and get a sense of where they are before jumping in with, isn't it wonderful that they've transcended and now they're in spirit, or whatever, wherever we may go with it. I mean, we can hold inside whatever we hold inside, but what we put out there, is it helping them? And there's a kind of an easing into it in terms of grief. And also, the thing I found most useful talking to people is they're kind of in shock and they go into the grieving process. And you can feel the grief. I mean, I start tearing up because I'm experiencing that grief that they're experiencing in my own way. But it's never going to go away. It's like, relax. A year from now, you may suddenly walk down the street and something will remind you of something and you'll burst into tears because we're missing the friendship. We're missing the material. I had a dear friend, I didn't even know he'd had a stroke because he was Jehovah's Witness, so his relationship with me was very closeted. Nobody knew I existed. But I found out later that he'd passed. He's such a sweet man, and it just kind of comes to me all of a sudden. But here's the good news: over time, I found that people remember the good stuff, not the challenges, not the difficulties, they remember the beauty of these people, of these beings that we related to. And to me, that's the good news.
Good news. The good news. Anybody else want to share? Talking about simplifying your life. Anything you think it's time for you to do? Enough for today topics. Gregory.
Um, I'm kind of a child of the 60s, which many of you are. And part of my experience at that time was dropping out of things, not being connected, spending a lot of time just traveling with the only possession I had was in the duffel bag. And I have memory and remembrance of that as being a bit, despite all the stuff I was dealing with or going through, there's that sense of freedom that I could, on a whim, on a moment, a second, could turn the other direction and board a bus or do anything. I had no car or anything, and I flew places. I did bicycles, yeah, and actually, part of things was when I came into I undertook to become connected, to have things, to handle the world around me, to participate, but part of the learning thing is I started to get connected, and stuff of my things are things that I've asked for or opened myself for, and so I have a house to live in and go in and stuff like that and things. I have a wife, so because I wanted to have family or of that. So I've been looking at things because part of this class we're taking right now is very much just what I'm looking at is elder years are going into that other part of myself. So I inside myself I have an honoring or a duty of those things I brought in that not just going to drop things and stuff like that. There's a part of me that wants to not so much be unattached, but to let go in a way that everything is in balance and um, rightfulness of it. I don't know how to express it other than that of life. So I started doing things like very much what some of you're doing is I joined up in the Global Circle of Light and started being involved at those times. So because the ways I didn't think, because I think the mind is going to really handle this one really well, not. And I or move into ways of expressing myself and becoming, and in the consciousnesses I work with to balance and I guess Cheryl, you mentioned it's like a birth, as a death is kind of a birth at the same time of things. So, and I don't know how that's going to work or anything because I'm right here, not there, unless it's tomorrow. But I prefer not because I haven't done my paperwork either.
We need to get a
So,
paperwork
yeah,
party going. but I remember the freedom of 21 and 22 and just being able to go with my girlfriend down to Mexico and travel to Tikal and the 1952 half-ton GMC truck and with its camper on top and we're going in like cabin out in the farms and raising chickens and a couple of things up there and for the summer and having no electricity and no running water or anything like that. And so there I am, and I'm thankful, Cheryl, for this opportunity to Thanks. Thank you. Carol, welcome. Can't hear you, but it doesn't look like you're on mute. Can anybody else hear her?
Hey,
No.
me now.
Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I've seen a lot of you at conference every year. That's the one thing I do. And I have an active ministry. I live here in Baja California in Mexico, and at least most of the time. And I've never really shared, but I kind of want to put a different point of view on the letting go. I decided that I belong to a group that meditate and study together. It's not an MSIA group because there are only 3 of us ministers down here, and we don't seem to get together much. But we read the book On the Brink of Everything by Parker Palmer, and he's really talking about death and dying and living. And so what I decided for this year, I have 3 words that I'm using. One is trust. I'm giving up worry because I'm a lifelong worrier, fretter, and depressed person. And so I decided I'm going to take this in my hands. I can have a choice. So I'm going to trust. I have a higher power. I have God. I have groups. I have all these friends. I'm going to trust. So I'm giving up worry. And then I have decided also to look at another 2 words which I would like to use for this year. One I got from my yoga teacher who's 84 years old and is an extraordinary example of how to live life. And she came up with the idea of glimmer, that there are always glimmers of hope and glimmers of something different, glimmers of something on the brink of everything. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. It may be not good, but then we've learned in MSIA that we love it all. And so I really work on loving it all. And so there's always a glimmer of something else. And then this other word I'm using besides, there's trust, glimmer, and today I saw the word sparkle. And that's letting my light shine. My ministry is around the idea of music and teaching and light and sound. So I have to really, I have to take that into consideration. My ministry is to sparkle. So instead of, I have the same issues, and I loved hearing, taking it with humor from Bertie, because I have lots of stuff. I have the biggest house I've ever had in my whole life here on the beach. It's a wonderful place, and it's full of stuff. And so I decided I spent about 18 months depressed, thinking, how am I going to get rid of all this stuff? What am I going to do? I don't want to get rid of it. And like her, I was a preschool teacher, a high school teacher, elementary school teacher, college teacher, and I've got all this stuff that I think I'm going to use. Well, I decided if I'm going to trust, there will be a place for all of this stuff and somebody who can use it or not. And it's amazing to me, once I learned to trust and let go, I met at a concert someone who had used all my opera scores. And I think that there's an English program across the street that they can use all of my preschool stuff in English. So it's really a process of listening in my spiritual exercises to really know where I'm going to go with it. I have the answer. The answers will come to me when I need them. So I'm working with 3 words: glimmer, trust, and sparkle. So I know I'm going to die. I'm 77 years old. But I have a 96-year-old aunt and a 98-year-old sister-in-law. And I'm learning from them some of the things that I don't want to do because I'm probably going to be really old. So as much as I have the possibility to choose how I want to get really old and where I want to live, I've had to realize that I'm probably going to have to go live with my daughter. I may have to live in assisted living, but not yet. Today I have a wonderful life. And so I think I will sparkle, shine, and trust that it's all going to work out, because that's what practical spirituality is for me. So thanks for letting me share, and thanks for letting me be in on this meeting. It's really lovely. And thank you for being willing to do this.
Well, thank you so much for bringing your sparkle and your glimmer. I feel it. And I appreciate it. And I think we just need more of that, as far as lighting up as we age, and that's really what it's about. And I love the trusting and the letting go. It doesn't have to be letting go.
I should mention that I'm at home with COVID. So I'm on my 5th day, and it was very hard for me. I had expected to be on the 8th day of a wonderful trip to see my grandkids. That was going to be my Christmas trip, to see them, and to see my brother, who's 88 and dying of pancreatic cancer, and he's lived a good life. So I'm disappointed, but I can always reschedule that. And so it's amazing that I've been home, and even not feeling very well, I've been able to clean up. I keep trusting that the next right thing will happen. So COVID has not been so bad. I'm enjoying my time at home, and being with my dog and cat and my husband, and watching the waves come in. So I think a lot of it has to do with turning things around. In my case, I tend to be really depressed and look in the future. I have no control over the future, hardly. So it's all about today. Oh, and I started a happy dance. I have now a practice of every day I try to get up and I just wave my arms as best I can and my legs, shake them on, and do a happy dance. and remember about all the things I'm happy for. It reminds me of something that JR said about you could say, I'm happy, 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 happy. So
Mhm.
I started thinking, yeah, I learned that a long time ago, but maybe I didn't put it into practice. So I am now.
Mhm.
Thanks.
I love that. Thanks for the reminder. Thanks for the reminder. I really hear you, accepting whatever's happening, whether it's COVID or whatever's going on, and just making the most of it. And it reminded me of when we were talking last week. We were talking about just being grateful for what we can do, right? Sometimes with aging, there's things that we can't do like we used to do. But there's so many things that we can do that, even if it's just getting up out of bed or putting our clothes on or walking from here to the bathroom. There's so many things that we can do that if we weren't able to do them, we would be more grateful. So thanks for the reminder. Happy dance. Hey, John and Lori.
Yeah, hi there.
And then we had some, yeah, it was a lot of people.
A lot of people.
Yeah, and they all had fun. Yeah, it was fun. A little bit of movements
Yeah,
and all
the
the
happy dance.
yeah, happy dance.
Happy dance. Mhm.
Yeah.
Gregory, I had to jump in there when you said a GMC truck with a camper, because that's what we live in, a GMC truck with a camper. Just cracked me up. Um, you probably saw that as like some romantic part of your past, but no, it's our current reality, and it's a pretty cool one. I apologize for coming in late. It's just lots going on, but we came in during Birdie sharing, and wow, great to see Shelly again,
Mhm.
uh, and then hi, yeah, and Gregory, just I think Gregory, you were in like that first PTS class with John Colley, and Monterey that were facilitating the three selves class, because I just remember you having like a great basic self, and anyway, it's and I think about like I wonder about my motivation for saying this, like, oh, we used to have a house in Mandeville Canyon, but I just it is kind of funny in terms of the simplification process of 5-bedroom house in a fancy area to apartments in fancy area to you know tent in a campground, and we did that for about 6 months, and then we got our truck. The camper was in storage until we could find the right vintage truck. And so, just kind of all of it. But you know what it came down to? It really was like none of this, none of it matters. None of it. Big house, little house, no house. What really mattered is this being like that's right next to me there. That just, you know, sometimes they're speaking in the third person, sometimes it's to Lori, but I mean, to see, there I am. Sometimes it's to our daughter, but they're, what they said is, I just love him so much. And I just like, and there's this radiant face and this smile that goes with it and these sparkle in the eyes. It's just, I look at it and I go, is that a real human? It's just like, it just blows my mind. And they were looking at themselves in a full length mirror, which we don't normally have access to. And they just said some things about themselves, let's just say, that weren't flattering. And they were quite distressed about it. And I just looked up at him and I said, there's nothing in this world that is worth more than the loving that I see in your face. And then I flashed back to my younger self and how, you know I I was captured by glamour and things that I thought looked beautiful, and things that I thought were quote worthy of me. I know that's such a silly statement, but that was like running at some level, which of course underneath that was running my own unworthiness. And but I just anyway, we all just stick with what the positive is, which is just thank God. I don't there's nothing in this world that's holds a candle to loving. And I'm just so thankful for it. Even if I drop dead with none of my paperwork done, and they could just in the end they can just stick me wherever they want. As long as they don't try to keep the corpse alive and reanimate it. But maybe I'll fill that one out. But anyway, I liked what everybody shared.
Yeah, me too.
It'll be a happy day, won't it, Bertie? Right?
It's a happy day.
Happy
Oh,
day. Happy days are
day.
here again.
Oh, happy
Yeah. Back to
Mm.
Eden. All right. Love you
Thank
all.
you. Love you. We had a couple hand raises when we were talking about a paperwork party. Maybe it's time for another one of those. We get together and not just talk about the paperwork, because we've talked about the legal paperwork that we need to get in place, but actually do it, make it happen. Sometimes the motivator is people don't want. So if someone passes away and they don't have their paperwork in place and they have some assets, for example, that money might go to like a sister that they never liked and that they don't want that to happen. So that's their motivator to fill out some paperwork. That's often it's probably like the highest percentage of motivators that I hear about for people. But another part of it is just having the control, even when you're alive, right? If we fill out our powers of attorney for healthcare, then the doctors can talk to certain people about our medical care, so that's a benefit as well. So anyway, yes, and if you don't have the paperwork filled out, it'll all take care of itself. May go through probate for a year, may cost money, but it just all works out. It's all good. No problem.
I don't know what they're.
Hey, Carol, I wanted to just toss in. I was when I was working for MSIA years ago and Now Productions archiving, I can't remember whether they were tapes she had recorded herself or they were recorded at her house, but I remember seeing Alma Clary on some of those old cassettes from the 60s. So it's like a treat to see you. You're like your connection with the I call them the original generation of MSIA. So that's really wonderful.
That's where I recognize that name. Nice. It's nice to see you, lady. I see you. And Fanny. Hi, Fanny. People. Anybody else want to share before we wrap it up for today? All right. Well, I love you all. Thank you so much for being here. It's been a privilege to hear you and see you. Did you want to share, lady?
No, I just want to say thank you for
Okay.
this. I just love watching the recording. So, and when I can, I join in. It's so uplifting. It's very healing for me because I'm still healing with my brother's passing. It's 2 years ago, but I still in that process. So I love to listen to you sharing, and it touched me deeply. So I thank you.
Thank you.
And I love you. I love you all. Thanks.
Very nice. All right. Well, I hope to see you all again on Tuesday at noon Pacific time. Thanks so much for
Hey,
joining us.
Cheryl, thank
Love
Love
you
you
for
all.
showing up.
Love you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone to share.